There's a new 25% management fee on your project bonus. Company policy, Ashley said, sliding the paper across her desk without looking up. I stared at the numbers. $18,500 reduced to $13,875, a $4,625 management fee. I'm Ryan Morrison, 49 years old, and I've been crunching numbers at Apex Industrial Solutions for 6 years. In all that time, analyzing every policy manual, every procedure document, every financial guideline, I'd never heard of such a thing. Ashley Coleman finally looked at me with those calculating eyes I'd learned to recognize over the years. Yes, Ryan, management oversees all major projects. This fee reflects that involvement. I held the paper carefully, fighting to keep my hands steady. When exactly was this policy created? It's always been there, she said, checking that expensive Rolex she'd somehow afforded on a director's salary. Just never applied before. Budget constraints, you understand. The lie sat between us like a physical thing. I'd reviewed every company policy during my 8-month efficiency audit project. Every single page, 3 times. I'd memorized sections of the employee handbook. There was no such policy. I see, I said, keeping my voice level. Does this apply to everyone's bonuses? She shuffled some papers with practiced disinterest. I have another meeting. We can discuss this later if you have concerns. I stood up, clutching the bonus statement like evidence at a crime scene. $4,625 gone. That was Jake's insulin for 6 months at $800 per month. The transmission repair on my 2008 Honda Civic that barely started anymore. Money I'd promised to put toward his community college fund so he could study engineering like he'd dreamed about since middle school. Thank you for the explanation, I said, even though she hadn't given one. That night, I sat at my kitchen table surrounded by the familiar anxiety of our financial reality. Medical bills from Jake's endocrinologist visits. Diabetes supplies that insurance only partially covered. The latest tuition estimates that seemed to climb every semester. My 16-year-old son was upstairs doing calculus homework, his glucose monitor beeping softly every few minutes. Jake was everything good that remained from my marriage to Sarah. Smart like his mother, with her stubborn determination and my attention to detail. After she lost her battle with cancer 3 years ago, it became just the two of us against the world. A world that charged $300 for a month's supply of insulin and didn't care if a widowed father worked himself to exhaustion trying to provide it. 8 months of working late, missing his basketball games, skipping family dinners had earned me this bonus. It wasn't just money. It was our pathway to stability, to Jake's future, to the security Sarah had always wanted us to have. But now, a quarter of it had vanished into Ashley's personal account. Let me back up and explain how I got here, how a senior financial analyst with a gift for pattern recognition ended up in a corporate nightmare. I joined Apex Industrial Solutions 6 years ago, 2 months after Sarah's funeral. I needed stability more than pride, consistency more than challenge. Jake was 13, dealing with type 1 diabetes diagnosis and the devastating loss of his mother. I couldn't afford to take risks with our income or our health insurance. The company seemed solid. Mid-sized industrial consulting firm with government contracts and steady revenue. My supervisor, Ashley Coleman, was in her early 40s, ambitious, with a reputation for delivering results. She recognized my talent during the first month. You have a real gift for financial analysis, she told me during my initial performance review. You see patterns others miss. Connections that aren't obvious. What I saw about Ashley was her uncanny ability to take credit for her team's successes while somehow remaining invisible when projects failed. She maintained strategic relationships with upper management through book clubs and wine tastings on Wednesday evenings. Social activities I couldn't participate in as a single father managing a diabetic teenager's complex schedule. For 5 years, I kept my head down and did excellent work. I arrived at 7 a.m. when Jake's blood sugar was stable enough for him to get himself ready for school. I stayed until 6 p.m. unless his levels spiked and the school nurse called. I delivered detailed analyses that Ashley would present to leadership as collaborative team efforts, occasionally gesturing in my direction as my analyst. I didn't mind the lack of recognition. Every small raise meant one less worry about Jake's medical costs. Every performance bonus meant I could afford the good glucose test strips instead of the generic ones. Every year of steady employment meant we were building towards something better. Jake adapted to our routine with the maturity of a kid who'd lost too much too early. He learned to test his blood sugar without prompting, to calculate insulin doses like other kids did math homework, to call me immediately if something felt wrong. Some nights I'd find him asleep at his desk, having finished calculus while monitoring his glucose levels and researching engineering programs he hoped to attend someday. "Dad, will I be able to go to college?" he'd asked me last month, looking up from his laptop where he'd been comparing tuition costs. "Absolutely," I'd promised. That's what the Efficiency Project bonus is for. The Efficiency Project. That's where everything started to unravel, though I didn't know it yet. The company was hemorrhaging money during the latest economic downturn. CEO Mason Rodriguez announced emergency cost-cutting measures during an all-hands meeting in January. Hiring freeze, travel restrictions, and most painfully, a complete freeze on raises and bonuses. Unless, he added with the desperate optimism of a man watching quarterly reports turn red, someone could identify substantial savings within the company's own operations. "We need fresh eyes on everything," he'd said. "Supply chains, workflows, energy usage, vendor contracts, someone who can find millions in potential savings." Ashley volunteered our department the next day. She stopped by my desk that evening as I was gathering my things to pick up Jake from basketball practice. "Ryan," she said, her tone suggesting opportunity. "The CEO needs someone to analyze every aspect of our operations, find inefficiencies we've been blind to." I looked at the stack of routine reports on my desk, then at my watch. Jake would be waiting. That sounds like a massive undertaking. It is. But there's a substantial completion bonus attached. Life-changing money. Her eyes had that gleam I'd learned to recognize when she sensed personal advantage. "I thought of you immediately. Your analytical skills, your attention to detail. This project has your name on it." I should have asked more questions, should have requested the parameters in writing, gotten specifics about timelines and expectations. Instead, I thought about Jake's insulin costs climbing every year, about his college dreams, about our aging Honda that rattled ominously every time I started it. "What kind of timeline are we talking about?" I asked. 6 to 8 months for a comprehensive analysis, full access to all departments, all financial records, carte blanche to dig as deep as necessary. I thought about the overtime pay, about the bonus that could finally give us breathing room. "I'll do it." Ashley smiled, and I caught something in her expression I couldn't quite identify. Satisfaction, maybe? Or calculation? "Excellent. We start Monday." The Efficiency Project consumed my life for the next 8 months. I analyzed everything from the number of printers per department to the efficiency of our HVAC systems. I created detailed models showing potential savings from remote work policies, consolidated vendor contracts, and streamlined approval processes. I dove into supply chain inefficiencies, identified redundant software licenses, and mapped out workflow bottlenecks that were costing us thousands every quarter. Jake would fall asleep on our living room couch while I worked at the kitchen table, his glucose monitor beeping softly beside his textbooks. My mother had offered to help with his care, but her own health was declining, and I couldn't burden her with the complexity of managing a diabetic teenager's needs. Some nights I'd find Jake had already calculated his evening insulin dose and prepared his breakfast supplies for the next morning, trying to make things easier for his exhausted father. "Dad, you're working too much," he told me one evening in month 6 of the project, looking up from his pre-calculus homework. "Mom always said you got obsessive when a project mattered." He was right. Sarah used to tease me about my tendency to disappear into spreadsheets when I was trying to solve a problem. But this project mattered more than any I'd ever worked on. The bonus would change everything for us. I'd calculated the allocation down to the last dollar. $8,000 for Jake's insulin pump upgrade that would give him more freedom and better glucose control. $3,500 for the Honda's transmission repair and maybe a down payment on something more reliable. $4,000 toward his community college fund. $3,000 for a real emergency fund so he wouldn't live paycheck to paycheck anymore. The final report was 247 pages of analysis, charts, projections, and recommendations. I identified $4.2 million in potential annual savings through a combination of process improvements, technology upgrades, and strategic vendor negotiations. When I showed the executive summary to Ashley on a Friday afternoon in September, her reaction was immediate and telling. Her expression shifted from mild interest to shock to something I could only describe as calculating hunger. She stared at the savings projection for a full minute without speaking. "This is remarkable work," she finally said, her voice carefully controlled. "Truly remarkable. I'll need the weekend to review everything before we present to leadership." "Of course," I said. "I can walk you through any sections that need clarification." No, I prefer to digest complex material alone first. We'll meet Monday morning to discuss presentation strategy." Something felt off about her response, but I was too exhausted to analyze it. I'd been working 60-hour weeks while managing Jake's medical needs and trying to be the father he deserved. I needed the weekend to reconnect with my son and catch up on the household responsibilities I'd been neglecting. That Saturday, Jake and I went to his basketball game for the first time in 2 months. He scored 18 points, his best performance of the season. Afterward, we grabbed burgers, and he told me about his plans to major in biomedical engineering. "I want to design better glucose monitoring systems," he said, dipping his fries in ketchup. "Maybe help other kids who have to deal with this stuff." My chest tightened with pride and love for this incredible kid who'd turned his medical challenges into motivation to help others. "That's an amazing goal," I said. "The efficiency project bonus will help make it happen." Monday morning, I arrived at Ashley's office at 9 a.m. sharp. She was already there, looking polished and confident in a way that seemed different from Friday's hesitation. "I've reviewed your analysis thoroughly," she began without preamble. "The work is solid, though some recommendations will need adjustment for practical implementation." She turned her laptop screen toward me. My detailed report had been reformatted into a sleek presentation template with Ashley's name prominently featured as project lead on every slide. My name appeared in small text at the bottom as contributing analyst. "I've streamlined the presentation for maximum impact," she continued. "Leadership doesn't need to get bogged down in technical details." I scanned the modified slides. Key findings had been simplified, some recommendations diluted, others removed entirely. The projected savings figure had been reduced from $4.2 million to $3.8 million to ensure realistic expectations. "Some of these changes alter the fundamental assumptions," I said carefully. "The vendor consolidation strategy, for example, won't achieve the projected savings if we maintain separate contracts with premium suppliers." Ashley waved dismissively. "Leadership appreciates conservative estimates. We can always exceed expectations during implementation." The presentation was scheduled for Wednesday. I spent Tuesday night reviewing Ashley's modifications, growing increasingly concerned about the strategic compromises she'd made. But I told myself the core analysis was sound, and the bonus would still materialize. Wednesday morning, I sat in the back corner of the executive conference room while Ashley commanded the front, clicking through slides with practiced confidence. She spoke about our comprehensive analysis and my team's thorough investigation, occasionally gesturing in my general direction. CEO Mason Rodriguez called it industry-changing work and immediately authorized implementation planning. CFO Amanda Foster praised the innovative approach to operational efficiency. VP Logan Hayes, Ashley's book club partner, beamed with pride at his director's achievement. Ashley accepted congratulations with gracious humility, making sure to mention the excellent support from my analytical staff while never mentioning my name specifically. I didn't care about the credit. The bonus would transform our lives regardless of who got the recognition. After the meeting, Ashley pulled me aside with barely contained excitement. The CEO approved the full bonus structure, $18,500 for project completion, exactly as promised. I'll have the paperwork processed by Friday. That night, I called Jake into the kitchen and showed him college brochures I'd been secretly collecting. "Start thinking about which engineering programs interest you most," I said. "We're going to make this happen." He hugged me tighter than he had since his mother's funeral. "Are you sure, Dad?" "I know money's been tight. I'm sure." The project paid off. We're going to be okay. For exactly 48 hours, I believed we were finally turning the corner toward financial stability. Then Friday arrived, and Ashley slid that bonus statement across her desk with its impossible management fee deduction. $4,625 stolen. Our future cut by 25%, with a lie so transparent it was insulting. That's when I realized Ashley had never intended for me to receive the full bonus. The project, the presentation, the praise. It had all been carefully orchestrated to position her as the mastermind while leaving me grateful for whatever crumbs remained. But Ashley had made one crucial mistake. She didn't realize that 8 months of analyzing every aspect of Apex Industrial's operations had taught me exactly where to look for patterns of financial irregularities, and now I had a very specific pattern to investigate. That night, after putting Jake to bed and checking his blood sugar one last time, I sat at my kitchen table with my laptop and began the most important analysis of my career. Not for the company this time, but for my family's future. I started with company policies, searching every digital document for any mention of management fees, bonus deductions, or administrative charges. Nothing. I reviewed my employment contract again. The bonus structure was crystal clear. Performance bonuses shall be calculated based on measurable cost savings identified by employee, with deductions limited to standard federal and state taxes. No management fees, no administrative charges, no exceptions. Next, I accessed the financial systems I'd been using during the efficiency project. 8 months of deep analysis had given me legitimate access to budget records, payroll data, and project allocations across multiple departments. I began tracking patterns in Ashley's decision-making, looking for other instances where numbers didn't add up. The first red flag appeared in last year's quarterly reports. 3 separate projects showed final costs exceeding approved budgets, but the overages were categorized as management oversight fees in accounting records, amounts ranging from $2,800 to $6,200, all approved by Ashley and processed through her departmental budget. I dug deeper. Employee performance bonuses from 2022 showed interesting discrepancies. Jennifer Park, our marketing liaison, had earned a $4,200 project completion bonus that was reduced to $3,150 on her final paycheck. The $1,050 difference was labeled as administrative processing fee in her file. Aaron Webb from logistics received a $3,800 bonus that became $2,850 after departmental coordination charges. Lisa Parker's Innovation Award of $2,400 was trimmed to $1,800 by management facilitation costs. Every single one bore Ashley's electronic signature. I created a spreadsheet, tracking every suspicious deduction over the past 4 years. The pattern was methodical, calculated, and devastating. Ashley had been systematically stealing from employee bonuses, using official-sounding terminology to disguise theft as policy. By 2 a.m., I had documented $127,000 in questionable deductions affecting 18 employees, but that was only what I could access with my current system permissions. As the efficiency project analyst, I'd been granted temporary expanded access to conduct my comprehensive review. That access was set to expire Friday, but until then, I could dig deeper into financial records normally restricted to senior management. Wednesday night, I went back further. Ashley's first year as department head in 2019 showed smaller-scale irregularities, vendor payment discrepancies where approved amounts differed from actual payments, with the differences routed to departmental operational funds under her control. Travel expense reimbursements that included personal items categorized as business necessities, conference fees for events she never attended, with registration money apparently pocketed. The scope was staggering. Over 5 years, Ashley had essentially turned the department into her personal ATM, using increasingly sophisticated methods to steal from the company and her employees. My final tally, $340,000 in total misappropriated funds affecting 31 employees. Thursday morning, I arrived at work with a plan. I'd prepared detailed documentation of every irregularity, complete with source records and timeline analysis. But I needed more than evidence. I needed the right moment to present it. That moment came during Ashley's quarterly presentation to the executive team. I stopped at Sunrise Donuts on the way to work, buying 24 assorted pastries and Ashley's favorite black coffee. Something I'd never done before, but I needed her relaxed and off guard. "What's the occasion?" asked Jennifer Park when I offered donuts to the team. "Just showing appreciation for everyone's hard work," I said, placing Ashley's maple bar and coffee at her usual seat. Ashley arrived looking disheveled again. Late nights working on her presentation, she claimed, but I recognized the stress patterns of someone juggling too many lies. "Thanks for the coffee," she said, taking a grateful sip. "Really needed this today." The quarterly meeting was scheduled for 1 p.m. As team members gathered in the conference room, Ashley kept checking her phone nervously. When she stepped out to take a call, I noticed her laptop was still open on her desk, displaying budget spreadsheets for next quarter. That's when I saw it, clear as day on her screen. Special performance incentive, R. Morrison project, $4,025 listed under her personal allocation. I quickly took a photo with my phone, then pretended to leave some documents on her desk when she returned. "Just dropping off the vendor analysis you requested," I said casually. "Thanks. Let's get this meeting started." As Ashley began her presentation about quarterly achievements, I raised my hand. "Before we dive into performance metrics, I have a question about the new bonus fee structure." Her coffee cup stopped halfway to her lips. "We can address administrative matters privately, Ryan." "I'm just confused," I continued, looking around the table. "Did everyone else's recent bonuses have the 25% management fee applied?" Confusion rippled through my colleagues. "What management fee?" Jennifer asked. That's when the door opened. CEO Mason Rodriguez walked in with CFO Amanda Foster, arriving earlier than Ashley had expected for the quarterly review portion. "Sorry to interrupt," Mason said. "Just wanted to check on implementing those efficiency recommendations." "Outstanding work, by the way," he nodded toward me. Ashley's laugh sounded forced. "We were just discussing implementation logistics." "Actually," I said quietly, "we were discussing the new 25% management fee on project bonuses. I was hoping to understand when this policy was created." I looked directly at Amanda. "Would your office have documentation of when this was implemented?" Ashley's face went pale. Amanda frowned deeply. "There's no such policy. Management fees on employee bonuses would violate several employment regulations." "That's strange," I said, removing my folder. "Here's my bonus statement showing the deduction clearly marked as company policy." Amanda took the document, her frown deepening as she examined it. "I've never seen this format before. This isn't standard company documentation." Ashley cleared her throat. "Obviously there's been some confusion in processing. I'll look into it immediately." "I thought it seemed unusual too," I said, sliding a second document forward, "especially when I noticed this in the quarterly budget projections." I showed them the photo of Ashley's screen, displaying the $4,625 special performance incentive allocated to herself. The silence in that room was deafening. Amanda studied the image, then passed it to Mason. His expression hardened progressively as he processed what he was seeing. "Where exactly did you obtain this?" Ashley demanded, her voice rising. "Your computer screen," I replied calmly. "When I was leaving the vendor analysis on your desk, you'd left it open when you stepped out to take your call." Mason's jaw tightened. "Ashley, I think we need to continue this conversation in my office. Now." The next 3 hours were the most intense of my professional life. In Mason's office, Ashley attempted damage control with increasingly desperate explanations, while Amanda and I laid out the evidence piece by piece. "This is clearly a misunderstanding," Ashley began, her composure cracking. "The management fee was my mistake, a misinterpretation of new budget guidelines. I'll rectify it immediately." "What budget guidelines?" Amanda asked sharply. "Which specific policy mentions deducting from employee bonuses?" Ashley had no answer. When I presented my comprehensive analysis showing $340,000 in questionable transactions over 5 years, her explanations became incoherent rambling about departmental efficiency and oversight responsibilities. Mason's expression grew darker with each revelation. "Ashley, you're suspended immediately pending a full investigation. Security will escort you out. Ryan, I want you to work directly with our internal audit team to verify these findings." As Ashley gathered her personal items under security escort, she stopped at my desk one last time. "You have no idea what you've done," she hissed quietly. "The people I know, the connections I have, this won't end well for you." I thought about Jake waiting at home, about his insulin needs and college dreams. "It already wasn't ending well for me," I replied. The investigation took 2 weeks. Nicole Stevens, head of internal audit, had me walk through every suspicious transaction I'd identified. Each one led to others. Employee after employee came forward with their own stories of mysterious deductions and questionable fees once they learned they weren't alone. Jennifer Park had assumed the administrative processing fee was standard. "Ashley told me everyone's bonuses had administrative costs," she said. "I figured it was like tax withholding." Aaron Webb thought the departmental coordination charges were legitimate. She made it sound like overhead for managing our projects. I didn't want to seem ungrateful by questioning it. Lisa Parker's story was heartbreaking. That innovation award was supposed to help with my daughter's medical bills. When the amount came through lower, Ashley said budget cuts had affected all employee recognitions. I believed her. 18 employees had been systematically robbed, with Ashley using her authority and their trust to steal money, meant to reward their hard work. The final audit report was devastating. $340,000 in confirmed theft through bonus manipulation, expense fraud, and vendor payment schemes. Nicole recommended immediate termination and criminal charges, but VP Logan Hayes, Ashley's book club partner, pushed for internal resolution. He argued that publicizing the theft could damage company reputation and suggested a private reprimand with repayment terms. That's when something unexpected happened. During the final executive meeting to determine Ashley's fate, her daughter, Kimberly Coleman, the 22-year-old marketing assistant who'd been hired through obvious nepotism, burst into the conference room. "I need to talk to someone in charge," she announced, tears streaming down her face. "It's about my mother." Mason gestured for her to sit. "What is it, Kimberly?" "I found this at home," she said, pulling out a laptop. "Mom left it open and I saw everything. The spreadsheets, the calculations, all the money she's been taking." She opened the laptop, revealing Ashley's personal files. Detailed records of every theft, every manipulated bonus, every fraudulent expense claim. Ashley had been meticulously documenting her own crimes, apparently to track her earnings from the scheme. "She's been doing this for years," Kimberly continued, her voice breaking. "I thought the expensive dinners and shopping trips were from her promotion. I thought she'd earned it. But she was stealing from people like Mr. Morrison, people with families who needed that money." The room fell silent. Logan's argument for leniency evaporated in the face of Ashley's own daughter providing evidence against her. "There's more," Kimberly said quietly. "She got me this job. I know I'm not qualified. She told me it was networking, but now I realize she was using her position here to place me inappropriately." Mason's decision was swift and final. Ashley Coleman was terminated immediately, with criminal charges filed for embezzlement and fraud. The company initiated civil proceedings to recover stolen funds, and Logan Hayes was demoted for his attempted cover-up. 3 weeks later, I received a check for my complete bonus plus interest, $19,127. Every affected employee received similar restitution funded by the company's insurance policy for employee theft. But the biggest surprise came in Mason's follow-up meeting. "Ryan, your efficiency analysis identified savings that have already exceeded projections. Your investigation skills uncovered systematic fraud that could have continued indefinitely. I'm creating a new position, Senior Audit Manager, reporting directly to Amanda. Interested?" The promotion came with a 40% salary increase and responsibility for a team of 3 analysts focused on financial integrity and operational efficiency. That evening, I sat Jake down at our kitchen table with college brochures spread between us. "So about that engineering program," I began. His eyes lit up. "Really? We can afford it?" "We can afford it. Plus the insulin pump upgrade you've been wanting." He hugged me with the fierce gratitude of a teenager who'd learned too early that financial security wasn't guaranteed. "What changed, Dad?" "I stood up for what was right," I said. "Sometimes that's all it takes." 6 months later, Jake started his biomedical engineering program at the State University with a partial scholarship I helped him apply for. His diabetes management improved dramatically with the new insulin pump, giving him freedom he'd never had before. Ashley Coleman pled guilty to embezzlement charges and received 3 years probation with full restitution requirements. Her daughter Kimberly transferred to another company, determined to build her own career without questionable assistance. The efficiency improvements I'd recommended saved Apex Industrial $4.8 million in the first year, exceeding all projections. My new team has implemented systematic checks that prevent the kind of manipulation Ashley perpetrated. Sometimes when Jake calls from campus, excited about his biomedical device design projects, I think about power and accountability. Ashley believed her connections and authority made her untouchable. She thought my position as a single father made me vulnerable and unlikely to fight back. She was wrong on both counts. My revenge wasn't elaborate or dramatic. It was simply documentation, persistence, and choosing the right moment to present the truth. Sometimes that's enough to change everything. If you've stayed with my story this long, thank you. If something here resonated with you, I'd love to hear about it. Have you ever faced a situation where speaking up felt impossible but necessary? How did you handle it? Every story shared helps someone else feel less alone in their struggle. We're all just trying to navigate complicated situations with integrity intact. Remember, systems can change when people have the courage to document the truth and speak up when it matters most.